Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Learn with Jason. Today on the show, we have Anthony Fu. Anthony, thank you so much for joining us. How you doing today?
Yeah, been good. Yeah, thanks for having me. It's my pleasure.
Yeah, I'm super excited to have you on the show. I have been following your work for a while now, and I am just even back since you were doing some component CSS stuff, and you've been involved in the Vite community, and now you're on Vitest. But so for folks who aren't familiar with your career, do you want to give us a bit of a background on you and who you are?
Okay, and so hello, my name is Anthony Fu, and I'm a coding member of Vue, Vite, and Nux. And I'm also the creator of Vitest, and I'm currently working on Nux Labs. Yeah.
Excellent. Yeah. And so today on the show, we want to talk about Vitest specifically, um, which is it's a unit testing framework that's built for Vite. Is that a correct assumption?
I would say that it's built on top of Vite inside of beautiful Vite. Is
Got it.
that interesting? Is that even though it's on Vite, you can use it without Vite.
Oh, interesting. Okay. Very cool. And so in the description, it says that it is a Jest-compatible unit testing framework. And so when I think about Jest, I'm thinking of unit tests. I'm thinking of uh, snapshots. I think because of the way that I learned Jest, I always think of React. But Vitest is not framework specific. It is unit testing. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think it's like more unit testing oriented and also a general purpose framework agnostic test runner.
Got it. So we can use Vitest with or without Vite to run unit tests in anywhere that we would have dropped in a Jest test before we can reach for Vitest. And what was I guess what was your inspiration for building this? Like why build another a test runner?
Yeah, like for me, I'm personally really if I could, I really don't want to do that. It seems that this is a quite really a complex thing to do.
Sure.
Like from outside, you can already know that it's have a lot of aspect to take care of, and I think that's to the reason that we're starting to working on this one is I think first we need to talk about a bit about Vite. I think
Mm,
so. Vite was come up and we realize it's a really nice concept of like making all the things on demand and to have the really uh, efficient, fast hard module replacement. So then I kind of being more involved into the Vite team, into the Vite, and then finally joined the Vite team. And then since Vite is quite new and it's based on ESM and based on the browser to do the module evaluations instead of like bundling the file. So it's actually serving your source file
mm.
each by each, one by one, something like that. So is that we actually missing a mechanism to like run them without the browser? And also that's also the why that is efficient and fast since we don't bundle it, right?
Mm.
And then it comes to a problem is that when we have Vite and people are starting to using Vite, we need something to like they need they when you build an app, you probably need a test, right?
Mhm.
So there's people are kind of looking for the solution like to test with Vite, and it turns out like when we do the research, we can find out that okay, the existing tools is not working perfectly with Vite. So it turns out like when we want to do the documentation, we cannot figure out a best one to recommend.
Mm.
And that would be our main pain point for kind of long while. And you kind of have some workaround, but it's not really perfect. And to like indeed that Jest is the most popular one at that
Mhm.
time, and yeah, probably still is. But and the problem is that the Jest has its own pipeline of doing things, and
Mm.
if you want to like testing your components, for example, in where you're using Vite to deploy it. And in Vite, in Jest, you need to write kind of another pipeline to do the transformations to the code that Jest understand. And the blocker is that at that time it doesn't supporting async transformations, and it doesn't have ESM support. So that's being the kind of tricky one. Things Vite is async by default. So yeah, so basically, if you want to test alongside your app, you need to like duplicate your pipelines twice, and you need to maintain 2 configurations for Jest and for your app. Which actually, even though you take time to make the effort work, it still has some misalignment. It cannot be like 100% like matches with in terms of the features or how the code is being run. So at one of the meeting of Vite team, and Matthias or Patak, one of the coding member, and figure out, say maybe we can have a tool and figure out the name that's okay, mixing with Vite and test. It's called a Vitest. And we do the search, and it's available on NPM. So yeah, we just take the name. So it's actually, we don't have the idea of doing a test at that moment, but thinking, okay, we got a really good name. Probably it's worth trying to give it a try, something like that. So that's how Vitest comes alive. Yes.
I love that it starts from it's like a great name. Like, oh, that's it. Okay, well, now that we got a great name, we have to go build this.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, so you said a couple things that I think are really interesting that I hadn't really considered, and that make total sense now that you said it out loud. One of the big pain points that I think a lot of us have felt through the last few years, 5 years, is the slow shift of like not using ESM to using ESM. So ES modules came out and they were wonderful, but I think that we all thought we were using ESM, but what we were actually doing was feeding them to Babel and then, transpiling to CommonJS. And so when Vite came out, Vite is actually, it's all on ES Build or partially on ES Build to use like ES modules by default, like they're native, they're not transpiled, right?
I think it's partially. It's like basically for the transpiling, is that to transpile high level syntax into the low level, or like remove the type annotation from TypeScript. And that part is like based on per file. And during the normal build, we're still using rollup to do that. And we still have a little bit ES build to do the transpiling, and then we feed up to the rollup to do the bundling.
Yeah, so I hadn't really considered that like Jest isn't built for an ES module native app. It's built for transpiled apps, and so for me, most of the things that I build are toys, so I don't write a lot of tests. So I've only seen discussion about the pain of testing. And I did see a lot of people saying like, I don't know how to use, I can't get Jest to cooperate with this module because they ported over to ES Build. I think most famously was maybe like the node fetch module that did like a hard break to ES module by default, and then you had to change the way that you wrote your code so people would do the major update in Node, and then they would be like, why did fetch break? And so I can, it's been a disruptive change, and it feels like it's maybe more disruptive because it's sort of slow. So how have you felt about that as you've been kind of watching? You're pretty close to this with Vitest all being ES module native. How has that transition been as you've watched more and more of like the Node ecosystem go to modules, more of the front end ecosystem go to modules? Where do you feel like the big pain points still are as we try to get through the rest of the transition?
Okay. I think currently Node is shipping the ESM support in Node 12. and I think is 18 or like already 20 now. So I think the majority of the runtime of Node is already being supporting the Node modules already, ESM already. So you can say that okay, there's no problem to run ESM code, but the problem is the integration part is that since ESM is async by default, so you can have a top level await inside your ESM module, or like since they can be like fetched from the network, so it has to be async. So and the main problem here is that the CommonJS is sync. So when you require something, you don't await it. So that essentially means that you cannot require a ESM module since it's async. You cannot make it synchronized. So I think that would be the main pain point is that some packages that was written in the context of CommonJS is that it expects when you require some modules, you don't need to wait it. So, and async has a kind of problem is that once something is async, everything down the stream should be async, right? So, but actually the problem like go downs is that it's not really, there's a lot of workaround is that actually you can use ESM modules inside CJS, but using the import and await it, so you can use it. So for me, like from a library author perspective, I kind of prefer to like make the transition smoother, is that to ship your libraries for both ESM and CJS versions. You can use it. You can use your build to output two different type of formats, and then you have the export field in your package.json to redirect to different file for based on the environment that require your module. So that would help to like when the environment of your user is already being ESM available, they can get a benefit from your ESM build. And if they are not, they can still use your CJS version and until they got time to upgrade. So if you ship something like ESM only, that basically means that you can't refuse the user to use your packages if they are kind of still stuck on the CJS and they no longer get the update, your like bug fix, something like that, or you need to maintain two versions, which is probably not a good idea. So
do you think, so this is a little bit of like a just future forecasting question, but do you think we'll see within a near term version of Node a drop of CJS, or do you think that Node will continue supporting ES modules and CJS for the foreseeable future?
That's a good question. So for me, I kind of think they will keep supporting it, and it's basically, I think there's no harm, or like it just takes like, I don't know, years to do the migration, but still I think there's still some code is not ESM ready. So but I think the good thing is that the main problem is the highest level of your like integration, your framework, your meta framework. If they supporting the ESM from the top down, they make all the things easier, since in ESM you can still import CJS, but not another way around. So we see a lot of new frameworks are kind of now supporting ESM by default, or even making them default. So I think that can be like the thing will getting better and better.
Yeah. No, that totally makes sense. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about testing. I hear a lot of folks talk about testing, and depending on who's making the comments, it can feel very different what gets recommended for what's a good idea, what's a bad idea, what's going to help maintainability, hurt maintainability. And I have a feeling that the answer is somewhere in between the more extreme takes that we hear. So when you're building an app, how do you think about like the distribution of tests. Like there's unit testing, there's integration testing, there's end-to-end testing, there's other types that we can do. How do you choose when to put a unit test in place versus deciding that a unit test isn't going to be enough information and you need to go up to an integration test, or that an integration test is going to be too flaky and so you want to do a unit test? Like how do you build a mental model to know that you're not making your life harder with the types of tests you're choosing?
Okay. So yeah, I think I need to like have a note beforehand, is that I'm not expecting testing. And even like I know nothing about testing before like I made starting to working on Vitest. And even though I'm
cool.
like I build the tools, doesn't mean I really like good at using it, you know? So so my perspective is totally, I think, subjective. So
Sure.
just don't take it too serious. And yeah, just my personal opinion. So for me, I would use unit testing as much as I could, and to avoid to do things. Unit testing will be like having a more small scope, and it can be more efficient to test and more fast to test. You know, that you can imagine that if you run a E2 test and you need to fire up a browser, which is take a lot of time. And so for me, when you choosing when to test it is like when I'm not getting confident about the functions or the algorithms. When you cannot see through the function, is that like for like times two, like maybe that you just have a add function that's add two numbers. I probably don't test it, since you can directly see through that. You put two numbers in and you got the sum of it. But when you get a really complex algorithms, you cannot directly see through what is going on to the test. So that's probably the way I'm going to test it.
Yeah, that's a
good.
Yeah, so when you are looking at something like a unit test, you're looking to see, you know, is a unit test going to be noisier than just looking at the code? Because I agree, if you've got like an add function and it just says return, you know, number 1 plus number 2, it's pretty. A unit test doesn't give you a lot of additional information over just looking at that function, right? But when you get into something where you're mapping over data inputs and you're applying defaults, and you know it's really important that whatever the result of that function is correct, then having a unit test so that when you change logic over here and it accidentally kind of shifts what's happening in this function that you're testing, you don't, you know, find out because you broke production, because now you're not actually returning the array of I don't know, user data, categories, preferences, whatever it is, and now you've just got like a forever spinner because that piece of data is missing now. Those are the sorts of things that I think are, yeah, that makes total sense. So then the other thing that I hear a lot of like heated debate about is snapshot testing. And now snapshot testing is something that Vitest offers. Is that correct?
Yep.
So for anybody who isn't familiar, maybe you can tell us what a snapshot test is, and then what you believe is the right application of one.
Okay, so yeah, again, I'm not expert to testing, but I'm really in favor of like having snapshot testing, and then that could be the one of the reason I created Vitest things. When you don't have, if you cannot use Jest, you can use Mocha, which Mocha doesn't have the built-in snapshot, which is just a pain point for me. So I think, okay, maybe I can use Mocha and to bind some default like add-ons to do the snapshotting, and then I can wrap it with the package. And that's the initial idea of Vitest comes up. So is that I'm just like to have a default tool set, something like that. Is that like, the great part is that Jest has all the things included. So that's also the goal of the Vitest. So for me, like, I think snapshot is like, when you run the test, either will run your test for the first time and to save your output of a function or some state you want to log into a file, is that called snapshot file. And then the second time you run it, it will compare the result of your snapshot file and the second result and they will compare the file. And if they mismatched, it will tell you, okay, there's something wrong with there's some like difference, and then the test will fail. And if it's passed, that means the function returns as the result of the function returns as the last time. So you're probably good to go. So that kind of being a way that sometimes you made the changes and you think that the change to the output is expected, is on purpose. You can also trigger a command to update the snapshot.
Okay.
I think for me, it's basically like a lazy way to not manually write the output. Is that the test runner to save the output for you.
Right. So if I am using a snapshot, what's functionally happening under the hood is I will say, okay, for this test, I want you to take my, let's assume we are doing an add two numbers because that's easy to do. We say, all right, I want you to take the number 1 and the number 5, and I want you to feed those two, add two numbers, and then compare it to the snapshot. And so when the add two numbers function was written, it is number 1 plus number 2 and returns a result. And the snapshot is the first time that you run the test, it runs the function and then would take the result. So in this case, the number 6, and it would store that in a snapshot file that is then committed to your repo. Is that correct? And so then exactly. When I commit that to my repo, whenever the tests run, it's going to say, okay, I'm at this test that says compare the function call to the snapshot. So it's going to load the snapshot and see that the snapshot stored the number 6 last time. It's going to run the function, and then it's going to say, okay, I got the number 6. Does that match the number 6 that's stored in the snapshot? It says yes, and it says, great, your test passed. And then later, if you were to accidentally, I don't know how you would accidentally do this, but you switch the plus sign to a minus sign, and you get a -4 now, it would say, hey, your function's not returning the same thing. Your snapshot didn't pass. So you can do this manually with a unit test by saying, expect add two numbers 1, 5 to equal 6. Or you can say, expect add two numbers 1, 5 to match snapshot, or you have whatever the right syntax is. And it lets you, especially when it's something really complicated, like if you've got a build me a user data object that's got a bunch of things, and you don't want to have to write out this huge object to be the two equal. You can just say to match snapshot, it stores that big object in a snapshot file. You can manually verify that it is what you expected it to be. And then from that point forward, until you're going to change that user data, it just works. You're happy. So that seems like, yeah, I think to me, that seems like a perfectly reasonable thing to do. I wonder if some of the backlash against snapshots is maybe an over application of those to things that change very frequently. So you're like basically always, updating your snapshots, and it's like, okay, well, why have these at all if you're never going to keep them between commits, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, cool. So let's talk a little bit about what we want to do today. So I want to get my head around how to use Vitest, and I think a good way to do that is maybe we can just start with a project and write out a function, and figure out how we would test that. Maybe we can test it manually and put the inputs in and know what the output's going to be, and kind of do like a straight up equal assertion in the test. And then maybe we can also do a snapshot test of the same way to show how that might save us some time or make our lives a little bit easier. Then we can break our tests and update snapshots, all those good things just to show how it works. Does that feel like a reasonable next step?
Okay. Yeah, sounds good.
All right. Then I am going to take us over into pair programming mode. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to give a shout out to our closed captioning. This episode, like every episode, is being live captioned. You can see that on the homepage. In your Twitch viewer, you're going to get a closed caption button once it loads up here. There it is. So you can just toggle on those closed captions if you want them. They're also being posted on the homepage of the site so that you can go and see those. That captioning is being done by Rachel from White Coat Captioning. Thank you, Rachel, for being here. And it's made possible through the support of our sponsors. We've got Netlify, NX, New Relic, and Pluralsight all kicking in to make this show more accessible to more people, which I very much appreciate. We are talking to, let's see if I can type today. I'm still getting used to this new keyboard. We're talking to Anthony Fu today. So make sure you go and give Anthony a follow on Twitter. And, you know, just... Are you hanging out on Twitter these days, Anthony? Is there a better place for me to share?
Yeah, you can have a Twitter, or otherwise I'm also Mastodon.
Okay, is your Mastodon? Is your Mastodon linked from here? I hope.
Yeah, on the button in the description.
In the description, Mastodon. Here we go. I'll do a post over to here. All right.
Okay, thank you.
Excellent. All right, so we're going to be talking today about Vitest, and Vitest is blazing fast unit testing built on top of Vite. That is extremely cool. So if I want to get started, what should my first step be to setting up a project with Vitest?
It's up to like if you want to starting a new project, or like you want to like install Vitest in your existing project. But I think the basic thing is that you npm install Vitest.
Okay, so I'm going to for the sake of keeping things as simple as possible, I'm going to put us in a new project. So I'll do what is it, npm create Vite. Right? That's going to be it'll just give me a blank project.
Yeah, yes. I think so.
Okay. So we're going to do Vitest. And do you have should I do vanilla, something else? What do you think?
Yeah, maybe we can pick Vue or React. One of them should be fine.
Let's do Vue today. TypeScript or JavaScript? Do you have a preference?
Yeah, TypeScript, please.
Got it. Okay, so let's go into the Vitest, and then I'm going to run npm install. And you said I need to do npm install Vitest, right?
Yep.
Do I need TS or anything, or just straight up Vitest?
Yeah, straight Vitest. I don't know what TS thing.
Okay. All right. So then I'm going to open this up in my VS Code, and we can take a look at what we've got here. So this is set up. Oh, dang it. I need to do a git init, or else it's going to dim everything. All right. Try that one more time. There we go. Now it's not dim. Okay. So we've got a pretty straightforward setup here. We've got an index. We have Vue and Vitest as our only dependencies. We've got some Vite stuff, some TypeScript stuff, and I think we're pretty much ready to roll. So standard setup of just having a main, like a div. We've got our main script where we're loading global styles and importing our app to set it up, and then our app looks like it does everything else in here. We've got one component, one SVG, not a lot going on in here. So if we want to build out a function that we're going to use, maybe should I put that in like a utils? So it's just plain JavaScript to start, do you think?
Yeah, we can starting with plain. So maybe, yeah, just a utility. Yeah.
Okay, so we'll do util, and we'll call this one, we'll do something like load user data. So that'll give us a nice, like, somewhat complicated output. So we can export function load user data, and I'm just gonna kind of make some stuff up here. So we'll pull in a username, and that username will be used to get, like, I don't know, we can maybe even do some like Oh boy. I'm like faking my way through some of this stuff just to figure out like how we can do a little bit of variability in this testing without like actually setting up a username or something, or like a database, I mean. So we'll go with username. Still, nope. Oh boy, still learning this keyboard. Username, and we'll have like one for you. Oh my goodness.
Okay.
Here. And we'll do a name. And maybe, I don't know, like projects. And then we can do like Vitest, and you're a Vite maintainer as well, right? I'm gonna keep
Okay.
that if you don't mind.
All right.
And then we'll do another one for me, and it'll be a username of Jay Langsdorf. We'll do a name of Jason and a projects of let's do like burgers and cheese.
All
Okay.
right.
So, oh, and then I have typos in my code. Okay. And so what I want to do is we're just going to return user's name, or wait, users dot filter. No, what's the one for getting a single user? It's
you can use a find with the
find. That was the one I was.
That's,
Yes.
yeah.
Do a find, and we want. Oh my goodness, I bought an ErgoDocs, and I'm still not really capable of typing with it. So we're gonna do user.username equals username, and then we need to include that as an argument. Okay, so we're building out kind of a mess for ourselves here, but that's okay because that's what we're trying to test, right? So we're gonna get our user, and that user is gonna equal load user username.
Okay.
And then I don't know, maybe we want to do something. Maybe we could even extend it a little bit, but for now, I don't know. How would we could do user dot coolness, and then set that to be like, oh my god. Okay, username
Yeah.
equals otherwise we'll go with a -1. Okay, and then we will return
All right.
user. Okay, so it's unhappy with me because we inferred this type. So we can fake this, right? So we can go with a user, or hold on. Am I supposed to use interfaces or types? Which one's going to get me less
Both will
yelled at?
work. Both will work.
So we'll go, the username is going to be a string. The name is also going to be a string. The projects will be a string array. And the coolness will be a number. Okay. And I guess that would also be like potentially undefined.
Yeah.
And this one then needs to return a user. So.
Yeah, maybe you can assign a user on the users after the users when you're declaring the variables. A line 3.
Oh,
or
I got you here.
Line 2.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we'll go with user like that.
A bracket.
Okay, and it's unhappy
and you're using find, so it can be undefined.
Oh. Okay, so
Yeah.
Do I need to do like one of these? Fine.
You
Nope.
can you can actually add how do I say that? The yeah, this can also do.
What were you thinking? Like
Yeah, probably this is the better way.
okay.
I'm having
All
a
right.
bad idea.
Yeah, so we'll do something like this, and then if you, what are you unhappy about? User is possibly undefined. Yeah, so we'll do something like this. If no user, we can I don't know, throw an error.
No, yeah, that's a good one. That's a good one.
Okay. And so by doing this, what we've got is, I would say this is like this is a pretty decent thing to test, right? We have a like data access function here. I'm going to move this up to the top because it's going to cause my eye to twitch if I don't. So we've got our type, we're loading users, and then we are getting that user and like modifying it somehow. So we've got like a fake user, like a fake database access. We've got a function that would actually load that. And well, I should probably make this async too, right? Because like we would end up wanting this to be from an actual database. So we can just fake the whole thing and make it seem like a real network call to go off to our database and get a user by their username.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sounds great.
So the next thing I would want to do. Oh, it needs to be a promise now. That's fine. We can make that happen.
Yeah, that's TypeScript.
I love it. I love that it tells me that stuff. Okay, so now we've got our TypeScript is happy. Our function should work by all estimations here, and that should give us something to test. So I want to write my first Vitest test for our load user data function. How should I do that?
You can create a test file, and like where is totally up to you. You can create alongside your function, or you have a dedicated test folder, something like that, up to you. As long as the test file is ending with .test.ts or .js or .spec.ts or .js.
Got it. Okay, so we would do a load user data dot test dot ts. Okay.
Yeah.
And then I'm gonna need my my function here, my load user data. So we'll get that. And what else do I need? Do I have to import anything from Vitest, or is it magic, or how does it work?
So the first point, the first thing different from Jest is that the test utilities are not directly available globally, where Jest does. So we recommend you to like especially like import it from Vitest, so you can use the import, and you can use a describe test from Vitest.
Okay, so we want, and I can hit command space or control space here to see what's available.
That's a lot of things.
Yeah, there's a lot in there. That's awesome. So
describe.
Then I can do test.
Yeah, and
great.
Test. And probably you also want to expect, but it's okay. You can add it later.
And expect.
Yeah.
Okay. And so now I can describe my test, and we want load user details. And does this works like Jest, where I
yeah, just you can pass a function.
Okay, and then each one of these then becomes a test like this, right?
A test. Yeah, exactly.
Okay. So we want to load user data as expected. I don't know. That's a bad test name, but y'all can yell at me on the internet for that later. Okay. So if I do a like const user equals, I need this to be async. So we're going to do an await load user data, and then I'll have to make this thing. So we'll do ant foo7.
All right.
And then this needs to be async.
Yeah.
Okay. And then we would say expect user, and then is it like a dot to equal? Dot to
Yeah.
equal?
To be or to equal both would do.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then
yeah,
this
to
is
be
the part.
To be will be straight through. Yeah.
To be okay. So yeah, let's
Sorry,
do.
you should use to be will check the reference. So that will always fail. So if you compare an object, if you compare to a literal value, it should be fine. So to equal will be better fit here.
To equal will be better here.
Yeah.
Okay. So we've got that. We've got the.
So yeah, probably you can run the test first. So to see.
Oh yeah, let's run it and let it fail. What a great idea.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'll just delete that for now. And then we'll come in here and I'll just do one of these so it doesn't yell at me. And then to run the test, I actually see some cool stuff here where it's like telling me I can do it already, which
Oh,
I don't know where that
so you
comes
have
from.
the
What plugin is that?
you have the plugin installed.
That's a great plugin. I wish it would tell me what it was. No, it doesn't like. Oh, that's like a Jest
it's
plugin
Jest.
or something. Okay, so that's fine. We
But
don't need
yeah,
that.
actually,
So,
you can have a. Yeah.
sorry, go ahead. We have a
Yeah,
delay,
that's-
everyone, where I'm talking over Anthony, and I apologize.
Yeah, I'm sorry. We do have a Vitest VS Code extension, but I think we should start in simple for now, and later we can introduce it.
Yeah, that'd be great. Okay, so to start, how do I run this the first time? I don't think I built anything into the package to allow testing. So do I need to add a command? Can I run something from the command line?
Yeah, if you prefer, you can add the script at a test and then Vitest.
Okay, so we'll go test and Vitest. Okay, so then out here, I can do an npm run test.
Yeah. Okay,
Cool.
that's fair. Actually, I would recommend you to use the embedded terminal from VS Code, so you can see the code and your terminals alongside, or you can have a separate.
Yeah, let's do it. So down here, terminal, I can do an npm run test, and right alongside my code.
Yeah.
Great. Okay, so it was expecting an object which was incorrect, and instead it sent us our actual data. So then,
if it's me, I would just copy the output.
Oh yeah, good call.
You know, you are doing the manual snapshot.
Yeah. I've got to get rid of that. Okay,
yeah, you see the test is passing. And yeah, this is one of the interesting features that Vitest is dev by default, or we say watch mode in Jest, is that when you run Vitest, it runs with the dev mode. And it also smartly knows that when you are in CIs, it only runs once. But when you are in a real terminal, it will starting to watch mode. So you can directly starting to having a feedback of when you change the test, and it will automatically rerun it.
That's excellent. So then the next thing that we want is we want to make sure that it is setting the right coolness levels for us. And so we'll make another async function. We will do one of these, and then I'll get me will be, await load user data, and we'll pass in my username. And then for yours, grab this one. Oh, whoops. and then we should be able to do expect JSON coolness to be, now this one we want to be exact, right? So I want this one to be -1, and I want yours to be 100. Okay. And now our tests are continuing to pass, so it's doing the coolness set correctly. And then we also need to check, I want to check what happens when we do it wrong. Like if we check for a user that doesn't exist, we're going to get that error. So how would I check for the error being thrown?
Yeah, maybe you can starting to write a test case that's expected fail. You just fetch you're just putting the wrong argument to the function, and then you can see how it works.
Okay, so we'll do an async. Oops. And we'll do no, not real, and that'll be one of these, await, load user data, fake user, and then I want...
You can save.
Okay, let's save.
Yeah, okay, you can say the test failed. It says, okay, you got no user found, right?
Right, and that is what I wanted. So I want to catch that and check that my error message is no user found.
Yeah. So it's in the opposite, is that this is what you actually expected, right?
Mm-hmm.
So a lazy way to do is that you add a dot failed after the test, the test. Before the descriptions.
Oh, I got you. So test dot fails.
Fails. And you save it. It passed.
That's
and
cool.
This is a lazy way to do, since you don't really testing what the error is. You just say, okay, this is just complete fail, and I don't care about how it fails.
Right.
So yeah, you probably should remove it. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, and then we can have a expect. I think expect dots. Oh yeah, expect, and then since the error is thrown before the expect, right? So it cannot be captured. So instead, in the expect, you should put the function you expecting it to throw. So you copy you just move the code into that and passing it as a function.
Okay. So I now expect my function, and I would want this to throw. There we go. To throw error.
Error. Yeah.
And
you need to turn it to a function. So Vitest could expect and then arrow function, then using await.
Expect arrow function using an await. Okay.
Yeah. And yeah.
And so I need to set this as async as well, I assume.
Yep. Or you can remove them together. It's also fine. Okay. And you can save it to see if that will work. No, still not working.
Unhandled rejection.
Yeah, I think we probably shouldn't do that. Is that the promise will be a bit different from a throw that's being a usual, like when you're testing a sync function, you will have the context of throw, but in promise you are actually being rejected. So you can change the two throw arrows to be reject. I think probably just reject. I can remember just without two, the reject.
Oh wait.
And
this expression is not callable. So do I just
and dot and dot, I guess.
Rejects.
Oh, what's that? I can't remember. Yeah, to have arrow, something like that, probably. Not sure.
To have returned.
To throw arrow. To throw, probably to throw.
To throw.
And then a coin.
Hey, there we go.
It's passing.
Okay. Can I validate the error message? Like if I want to make sure it threw the right error?
Yeah.
Okay. And do I just put that in here?
As you see that on the type, you can have a string or you can have a regex, regular expression.
Okay. So to start, let's make sure it fails. Like just a generic error. Okay. So that fails. Okay. So it expected something went wrong. It received no user found. Perfect. That's exactly what I wanted. So I can take my no user found. I can copy that and I can throw it in
as a snapshot. Yeah.
I love that we're just doing snapshot testing, just the hard way. But this is great. So now we can be reasonably certain that our function is going to do what we expect it to do. We check the moving parts. So we've got our, we're loading a user. We know that we'll catch it if the user doesn't exist. We know that we're setting the coolness properly, and we know that the shape we're getting back is the user that we expect, right? But this feels a little repetitive. Like I feel like I'm sort of duplicating efforts here where, you know, this data and the coolness and everything, it's all kind of defined in the code, and I don't know that it really makes any sense to like make my team anytime we need to add a new property go through and update every test in the test base and say like, oh yeah, just copy paste this property into every single test. So that does feel like a great use case for snapshot testing, where we just need to make sure that the output doesn't change unexpectedly, but we don't necessarily need like very high precision on everybody copy pasting every field into every test.
Yeah.
Okay. How would I change this over to a snapshot?
It's quite easy. You can just have the dots echo the entire function call, and to change it to match snapshot.
So we're going to change this to match snapshot.
Snapshot, yeah.
Okay. Now when I save, it did the thing.
And you check out the file. You actually have a folder created.
Mm-hmm.
And here it contains the data of the output. So, and I think the best practice here is that maybe you should do a commit here. So you will commit with the snapshot. So next time you change it, you will see the difference.
Got it. Okay, so let's add everything here, and I'll do a git commit, and we'll say feature first commit with working snapshot test. Okay, so now when we look, there's no unchanged anything in here. Our git history is clean. And if I run npm run test again, we're still running, everything is good. And now it's time for a feature change, right? Like we want to update this.
Yeah.
So both you and I are going to get a favorite food, and I will put in, let's see, mine's going to be pizza today. What about you? What's your favorite food?
Okay, let's go sushi, probably.
Oh, that is a good one.
Okay.
Now I want sushi. All right, and then we're going to update this to be favorite food, and that's going to be a string. Okay, so now that's happy. Yeah. And when we save,
and you can save it.
Oh, it's unhappy. And this is good because it doesn't match. So we wanted this to fail, but we don't want it to continue to fail.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Oh, and it tells me exactly what to do right here.
It tells you, yeah, you can press U if you think these changes is expected.
Amazing. And then now we're back to passing. Okay.
Yeah, and then you can check the file, the snapshot.
So here we've got, here's the changes I made, right? We can see the favorite food coming in. And here is the updated snapshot, and nothing unexpected here. This is exactly what we expected to happen. So that's why we would update it. Great. So then I can come in here.
And that's when you do the review, you can directly see the input and output changes.
Add favorite food. Oh, whoops. Gotta actually choose things to commit. Okay. So now we're all set. We got everything in here. We are in excellent shape, I think. So this is amazing. Like we're in really good shape here. We've got the ability to write out logic. We've got the ability to, we're doing this in TypeScript, so you can see how that all works together. And like TypeScript saved us from some errors that we would have had otherwise. Like I forgot to make this a promise at first. And so I would have, gotten weird type errors, and my autocomplete wouldn't have worked and stuff like that. Having the logic in here with the test we've written, we can feel pretty confident that whatever we're doing is not going to break the site, because if we made changes that change the output of the function, it's going to get caught by that snapshot test. And the logic that is custom, like this coolness setting, is explicitly tested. So we're not just snapshot testing everything. We're explicitly testing the code that we wrote. We're snapshot testing the output of the function, which is a big old object. And we're also testing our error handling explicitly as well, to make sure that if we send bad data, we get what we expected to come out of it. So this is great. And this is running real fast. I love the tip of like making it a git commit each time, so that you can see the diff not only in the code, but in the snapshot as well. That is very, very, very cool. Somebody's asking if we can see the snapshot one more time. So this is the snapshot code. And then the test itself is this one here, where we're saying expect the result to match our snapshot. So we're just telling Vitest, take whatever the result in user is and store it in this snapshot file. All right. So we've got about 30 minutes left on the clock. Is there anything else? Like what else should we showcase here? What Chad, if you've got questions that you want to see, throw them in. Or in the meantime, we will dig into something else. So Anthony, what should we look at next?
Okay. I think we can switch from our manually testing for the output of the functions to snapshot, which is like save our effort to update it manually. But we can introduce a new problem, is that we need to jump back and forth between those two files. So it's not really straightforward. When you make the change, you need to check the snap. So interesting is that we have another function to solve this, is that you can change to match snapshot to match inline snapshot.
Like that?
Yeah, and save it.
Ooh, very cool. Okay. And so this did exactly the same thing, except instead of creating this file, it's just rewriting my test to do writes the code for me.
Yeah, exactly.
That is extremely cool. That was like that. Okay, this is great, because that was such a Steve Jobs. Oh, one more thing. That goes so well done. You got me good.
Yes, great.
No,
glad you like it.
That is an incredible feature. And I love this, because you're right. Like, one of my resistances to snapshot testing is the fact that it's sort of magic, right? It's like, well, match the snapshot. And if I go look at my snapshot files, I can see what's going on, but like, who's actually opening the snap? We don't, right? We don't open them. We just kind of say, yeah, it's fine. And so this is amazing, because it's putting it right in my face so that I have to look and say, oh, that is what I meant to happen. So this is wonderful. So does that mean then I can delete my snapshot?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so then I can delete my snapshot. And if we come over into the Git thing, then we can see now we've gone from match snapshot to inline snapshot, and we've deleted this file altogether. So I can save all of that and say switch to inline snapshots. Okay.
Okay.
Beautiful.
And let's have a kind interesting thing to play. So you can go to a terminal and terminate the process.
Okay.
And you can use, I think, I'm not sure if npm do it. You can use npx Vitest, which is the same as x to execute the Vitest. And add an actual argument. Yes, it does exactly the same, but we need to add a new argument. It's called -u, which is update the snapshot. Just single dash and single u, or you can have like full name is like --update.
Oh, I got you. Okay, so we've got npx Vitest -u, and so this would update the snapshots automatically if we were to change them, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
And so here, combining with inline snapshot is a funny thing is that you can go to the test and then change my ID into yours.
Oh, okay, yeah, that's a great idea, because then
here
I was trying to figure out.
Save it.
Oh, and it just does it automatically.
And you change it back, it just switch to back. So when you have a kind complex logic to do, so you can actually play the functions by changing the input and output, changing the input, and you can directly see the output inside the test file directly, and you can change it again.
And so now that we've added the -u, if I go in here and add something else, like we're gonna say, I don't know, we'll say, I'm just gonna add something easy.
Okay, I'll go chips. Okay, snacks.
Just go Boolean. We need snacks. Always need snacks.
Okay, snacks. Okay.
Okay, and so now that and as soon as I change that code, because I'm in update mode, right, that -u, it's saying, I know you're trying to change the snapshots right now, so I'm not going to make you do the like failure and then manually update. You are in update mode. That's
I mean, always update the snapshot.
It's a little thing, but that stuff is so nice. Like it's just a really pleasant, quality of life improvement when I know I'm going in to change data and I don't want to have to manually update all the snapshots. So I can just hit -u, go tweak my code, and then review this and make sure, yep, that is in fact what I want. And we can test it one more time over here. And it updates and I can see, yep, everything came back the way that we expected. So we flip it back again and it's doing exactly what we want. So then I'm happy and I can come over into my commits and just double check one more time. Let me pull this back over to full screen. And what are you doing? There we go. So we can see that we added the snacks, and we can go in here and see that we added the snacks here and updated our data. And okay.
Yeah, it's very important.
So now we have, and this is great. Like this just feels so nice to work with. And, it looks very like I'm not intimidated by this. And I feel like sometimes when I start writing tests, I'm getting inside my own head about it. Like, oh no, I've like made this too complicated. And now I'm never going to be able to update this, but none of this feels like it's not something I can keep up to date. And I think maybe this is a good opportunity to talk about like Where is the high watermark for unit testing? Like, so this one, I'm testing a very specific function with some very specific logic. At what point do you think an abstraction is too large and like you need to almost break it down so that you can unit test individual pieces versus trying to unit test the whole thing, which would be enormous?
Okay, so I think for the problem or like the main barrier of like doing unit testing is that most of your function writing is actually contain side effect. It's not really clear that you got one input, you must got the exactly output. It's something like in the function it relying on other like the network or some other part of the stuff. So that can make the things harder to test. So
Okay.
actually, if you kind of have the mind to starting with the unit test and stick with it, it actually help you to make your functions more pure. Is that to avoid side effects as much as you possible? But that can be a way that to help you to maintain your code to since your goal is to get all the things unit tested, and then you need write the functions being easy to testable and maybe also easy to understand.
Gotcha. There's a question in the chat, which is a great question. Fëanor is asking, is it possible to output coverage?
Yeah, and you just pass dash coverage. And
okay, so we'll do npx Vitest coverage.
Yeah, and it has since the coverage is optional, so it will ask you to install a package.
Got it.
You can just type yes and then run again. Yeah, and
nice.
That's it.
Cool. So our one function that we've done, our one file that we've tested has 100% coverage. Yes.
Yeah, nice one.
Amazing. So that's great. I mean, this is great. And I love that, you know, the second half of Fëanor's question was like, do I need to install Istanbul instead? And it is so wonderful that you don't have to. Like, I know we installed an extra package, but I didn't have to go learn that. I just said, show me coverage. And you were like, oh, you got to install this first. And I just hit yes. Instead of me having to go Google, how do I show coverage with, you know, my Mocha tests or whatever it is. And then you have to install Istanbul once you've learned what Istanbul is and all those other things. So really, really good stuff here. Like excellent. This is very, very cool. So let's see. Is there anything else that you want to show before we start to wrap? Because I'm a little worried about trying to go in a completely new direction, like starting to test view components or something, just given the amount of time we have left. But I don't want to cut you off if there's anything that you have left to show off here.
Okay, I was just mentioning. So we were talking about the unit testing or integration testing, and it's actually not really possible to like always write pure functions. True. So sometimes you do need to have some like side effects, and that can be part of your code or your logic. So Vitest also offer a mock mode. That's a mock feature. So you can mock some certain thing. So for example, the time of your test running environment, or you can mock the set timeout thing. You can fire them up immediately without waiting for them, since they are not doing the thing. And also you can mocking the module, a certain module, by passing the function, passing the path of the module, or you can mocking network. And yeah, probably some can be quite complex and probably require you to read some documentation. But yeah, if you have time, I think we could do a quick one here.
Yeah, let's do it. Maybe we can even do a quick mock of like we have this load user function. We could just mock that and give ourselves a fake test user.
Okay. Yeah, we can go to our test file.
Okay.
And then with import in, you import a new thing called VI.
Say that one more time. Sorry.
VI, which is Vitest, the first two letters, which is the same thing as Jest. So in Jest, you have a global variable called Jest.
Gotcha.
So, and at line 3, something like that, on the top level, you have vi.mock.
Oh, whoops. We want to go with vi.mock.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then you pass the path of your module. You can copy it from, is that dot load user data.
And do I want to leave out the .ts or keep it?
You don't need the TS. You can match exactly the same as your input. And then you return a function. You pass a function. And in the function, you returns an object is like to represent your whole module. So here we can export an object and contain the function saying load user data.
Okay, so we've got our load user data, and
you need to return a function things.
Oh, right,
Is that confusing? Is that the market? Yeah,
and that's me not remembering how JavaScript works. We'll get there.
Exactly.
So we can do one of these.
Yeah.
And one of these. And
you don't need the extra. You don't need the extra arrow function. You just return an object.
Oh, you just return an object.
Yeah,
okay,
exactly.
Perfect. Less complicated is better. So then I've got my actual function here, and this can return.
You can return something.
Okay, and so we'll go down here and grab this, get ourselves a fake user, and this fake user is going to be. Oh, wait, no, we don't want that because then we'll actually have a fake user. So we'll go test user. And our test user is going to be just an absolutely terrible person. They don't want snacks. Their only projects are, you know what? They don't have any projects. They're going to have no projects because we don't talk crap about projects here, everyone. And their name is going to be, let's see, who's on my bad list? Alan. And Alan's favorite food is going to be boiled spinach. Gross. And they are as uncool as me. Okay, so that'll give us a fake user with the username test user. And then we will...
You can run the test again.
Run the test again. Oh, wait, I screwed that up. It's just npx Vitest. Okay, so it fails. And it failed because, like our coolness level is wrong. Our test user is wrong. And so this is the other thing too, is we're forcing data to come back, right? And so we need to do one of these.
No, you don't. Since the function is complete being mocked, so it doesn't. Since our mock function doesn't take any arguments, so it doesn't changes when your argument changes.
Right. Okay.
So that's totally expected. Mm-hmm.
Got it. And then I will. Okay, so I don't think we should update this actually, because what we've effectively done here is made it so that our function is not testable because we're overriding everything that happens from it. So we probably don't want to actually commit this, but the fact that we can is very cool. And so where I would see this being really useful is, like, for me, I don't want my tests to be testing somebody else's API, for example. So if I had a function that loaded data from GitHub, I don't want my CI to fail if GitHub's API is flaky or like I hit the rate limit or something. And I also don't want to like DDoS GitHub by sending a bunch of test requests to their network. So I can pick a repo and mock that and say every request to GitHub is going to return one repo that I will then use as my mock response. And then my logic is what I'm testing, not GitHub's API responses. And so in this case, I think the way we've done this mock is probably pretty antithetical to what we're trying to do because we completely removed our ability to test any logic from this function. But what's really nice here is that it does work. And the other thing that I like is that it worked despite the fact that this is loaded before we do the mock. And I feel like that's something that has tripped me up in other languages or in other testing harnesses where like, if you import something and then you try to mock it, it's already imported, so the mock doesn't work. And you just get into all these kind of confusing things where you just have to know stuff about import order and inheritance and all those things. This to me feels intuitive. I have a thing that I need to test. I want to mock what's happening so I can define the module that I want to mock, and the declaration order doesn't matter because what matters is my intent. My intent is to mock the thing. So I think that's yeah, this is really nice. I'm gonna leave this in commented for folks. So if you want to review the oh nope, apparently I'm not. Oh my goodness. Okay. All right. Yes, we're good. Okay. Jeez. Save, and then I need to hit Command, not space, and that's the comment button. There we go. All right. So then once we have that, our tests are back to passing. And there is a commented out example in the code of how to mock something. Okay. Anything else you want to show off before I wind us down here?
Yeah, this is great. Yeah.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Nah, this was so good. I like testing is one of those things. I feel like when I start thinking about writing tests, it causes anxiety for me because I'm like, oh, there's just so much to it. There's so many things that I have to think about, all the different ways that stuff moves. It's so cumbersome. And the fact that we were able to write 100% test coverage almost by accident, by thinking about the way we would be bringing in data and testing our code, I feel like that, that's a testament to the ergonomics of Vitest, that I never felt like I was thinking about the testing tool. I was thinking about the logic of my code and then, saying, yeah, I want this function to equal this thing. I want, if I call, if I load your data, I expect to see your data. And this inline snapshot is such a killer feature. So I think this is, I'm excited about this because looking at this, it makes me actually feel like I could manage and maintain tests, even on projects that aren't, huge, long-lived, multi-user projects where I would say, well, yeah, we have to do testing. Like, I'm like, I want this for my personal sites because I keep breaking my stinking API because I don't think about it. And then one part of my code calls that API and I forgot about it and it breaks. And I'm like, oh no, I took down my scenes. Like I did that the other week. And so tests like these, I'm like, maybe I should just spend a day and go write tests for all this stuff that I keep breaking. Well, Anthony, thank you so much. Where should people go if they want more information? So I'm going to drop the Vitest site one more time. Is there anywhere else that you would recommend people check out if they want to get deeper here?
Yeah, I think the documentation should be contains all the information we had. And yeah, if you prefer to have a video, I do have a course. Like I'm still doing it, but it's in View School.
View School.
Maybe you can search View School Vitest. Yeah.
Vitest. This one?
Yeah, we did that one, right?
Excellent.
So
all
yeah,
right.
just starting a few episodes, and it takes me quite a lot of time to do it. Sure. So
this is great, though. I mean, 11 lessons is not nothing. So make sure you go and follow Anthony on Twitter so that you can keep up to date on what's happening in and around that ecosystem, and also get notified whenever there are new lessons released on View School. In addition, this episode, like every episode, has been live captioned. We've had Rachel here with us from White Coat Captioning all day. Thank you so much, Rachel, for being here. And that is made possible through the generous support of our sponsors, Netlify, NX, New Relic, Pluralsight. Y'all keep sending me cash so that I can keep making this show better. Thank you so much for doing that. We got a lot going on the schedule. Make sure you set your calendars. We will continue with the Tuesday solo shows. So I'll be back next Tuesday from 9 to noon Pacific. Then on Thursday, we're going to have Kapehe from Sanity come in, and we're going to look at Sanity Studio V3 that just launched pretty recently, and we're going to dig into that. Thursday after that, we're going to do visual editing with Next.js, Contentful, and StackBit. If you haven't seen how all this visual editing stuff works, it is very cool how far that stuff has come, especially if you haven't looked at it in a while and you just assume all of that stuff is like, you know, the early days of visual site builders. There's a lot of cool stuff happening there. And then starting the week of February 20th, we're doing something really fun. We are going to do Observability Week. So this is in partnership with New Relic, one of the sponsors of the show. We're going to do 4 straight days on the 20th, 21st, 22nd, and 23rd, where we are going to dig in to all sorts of things around monitoring, observability, logging, site reliability, all these things that help keep your sites running in production at scale, and how that can work for you, whether you are an individual dev or a 1,000+ person company. So make sure you mark your calendars, add on Google Calendar, subscribe on YouTube, follow on Twitch, do whatever it is you want to do to make sure that you don't miss any of these wonderful episodes coming up. With that, we're going to go find somebody to raid. Anthony, thank you again for spending some time with us today. This was an absolute blast. Thank you all so much. We'll see you next time.
Yeah, thank you for having me. Yeah, nice talk. See you.
Bye.